Hello and welcome here again live to the World Crypto Network. And we're in it for a treat today, my peers, because today we are talking about the one and only GoTenna. Go anywhere, connect anywhere with the GoTenna mesh. Oh, that's right. We're talking mesh networks today. Thank God I'm not alone, because having a mesh network by yourself is not that much fun. So I'm joined with one of the GoTenna developers. Richard, how are you doing?
Good. Thanks for inviting me on. I'm looking forward to this.
Oh yes, Richard and I have talked at the Hackers Congress in Prague just a couple weeks ago, and now we're going to continue the discussion talking about the amazing GoTenna. We are also talked by Matt from the Tales of the Crypt podcast. What's up?
Hey guys, happy to be here. Big fan of both Richard and GoTenna's work.
Thanks, man.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And because, as I said, mesh networks are not that much fun. If you're alone, I got two peers here locally who are both in my region, and we hope that we can connect our GoTennas together. First, we got Neti. What's up?
Hi, Max. Thanks for the invitation. Looking forward to this. And thanks for your amazing work, Richard.
Well, and you guys know Neti and Thomas already, because Thomas, please say hello.
Hey guys, what's up?
So Neti and Thomas and I, we're representing Bitcoin here in the southern part of Germany, doing lots of meetups, including the Sonidos festival, where you, peers from the World Crypto Network, handed out a couple Satoshis so that we could give them away for the people there at the festival. And we onboarded quite many people. But guess what? We did not have internet connection. And what would be nice if we would have had it? Well, you can guess. It was right here, a mesh network. That is what was missing, a good mesh network for the connectivity. So maybe, Richard, to start off, what is the problem with the current infrastructure for communication, and how do mesh networks solve this?
Great question. Well, we were at the Hackers Conference up in Prague, and of course the talk I gave was sort of focused on the fact that your current communication is all going to go through centralized ISPs, centralized mobile carriers. And in the case of natural disaster, for instance, those networks can go out. Or if you were talking about being somewhere where you were sort of a last mile location, you can't connect to those centralized providers. They don't provide service there. And then, of course, there's the problem of the fact that your privacy and your is compromised through these centralized services, as well as the fact that they can be censored if you're in a particular jurisdiction where they like to do that, which is becoming more and more, it seems. So, yeah, so that's and so the way the GoTenna helps you there is rather than going from your mobile phone straight to the cell tower, and then it routes it around to the next guy and then sends it to his phone. The GoTenna is it's like having a CB having a walkie-talkie connected to your phone. So your phone can talk to the next nearest phone, which will then go from phone to phone to phone until it gets to whoever you're trying to communicate with. So in that way, you're decentralized and able to still communicate. Yeah. So that's the idea of mesh.
Well, and Matt, I do know that you are a huge fan of these decentralized protocols and these censorship-resistant protocols. So what are your thoughts on mesh networks, and how can they improve our current communication?
Well, I mean, I think that especially we see it a lot in America, that we have massive ISP centralization. A lot of people only have one or two options for their internet provider. Which is it's a major choke point for any kind of censorship-resistant activity, both by the ISP and by the government, who could pressure the ISP either through laws or national security letters or something like that. So mesh nets are in general probably the ideal future, or at least an aspect of the ideal future, where where there's no central choke points for our networks. And there's been a lot of good work on it recently. But GoTenna is the first consumer-ready mesh product. It's the first time that you don't, really have to fuck around with hardware and software. You can just pair this thing to your phone and get going. And without that ease of use, we'll never, for mesh networks to be successful, they need to be easy to use because you need as many nodes as possible. So that ease of use is an absolute game changer.
Oh yes, absolutely. And I do have to say that these GoTennas are quite easy to use. So what is really breathtaking when you look at them is, first of all, it's a nice packaging, right? You open it up and you see it's all matte black, which is nice. And you open it and it reveals, oh, look at that, 2 GoTennas with different color straps. So Richard, why specifically are there 2 GoTennas in here and not just one?
Well, they originally did sell them in singles, but because you're still building out the network, most people were buying 2 at a time anyway. So we found it was convenient to sell them in pairs. Because obviously, if you're not in range where you are of another person running GoTenna, then you need to have a second one. And a lot of the uses of this, I mean, we're going to talk in a later podcast, I think, about how to use this in the Bitcoin world. But a lot of people have been using this for hiking. They used it for the actually ski slopes in the US. Some of them are outfitted with GoTennas. So people can, when they don't have cell phone connectivity, can still communicate and, kind of arrange where to meet. So we find that one of the advantages of a GoTenna being sort of a consumer-ready product is it isn't just going to appeal to sort of privacy-concerned people. It's going to kind of apply to a really wide range of people with different interests. Some people are interested in disaster, scenarios. Some people are interested in just outdoor hiking. People give them to their kids if they don't want to give them cell phone connectivity, things like that. So it's just a way to help get the network growing. But 2 is a good number to start with.
And what I also like about being the Ring 2, you can choose which one fits your outfit best. So I have this orange one and the purple one.
That's great.
Especially if you're at a festival where Thomas and me had a problem sending a Bitcoin transaction, you can choose which outfit you want to wear. So I have the orange one and the purple one. Perfect.
we had some interesting consumer focus group testing at Polis Perlai in Prague because we found everybody wanted the purple and the purple and orange. I don't know if that was because there was a Monero contingent or what, but it was a interesting skew there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And different colors, different options. That's always nice. We have a question here by Paul Sai in the chat. Who asks, what is the range of these bad boys? And that's, of course, really important because you only communicate within this network. So the range of these is quite interesting.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to vary. So it's like talking on any sort of radio technology. It's going to depend on where you're at, what the obstacles are. I think we say, around a mile. I think that's like around 1.6 kilometers, something like that is sort of a good rule of thumb, but it can be much more, it can be shorter. It just depends a little bit on sort of your physical terrain and where you're at. It does better in big open spaces, but if you're in a smaller area, if you're in amongst a lot of buildings, that'll cut the range a bit. But it's still going to be much better than any Wi-Fi technology or anything like that. It's definitely optimized for range. So hopefully that answers the question.
Oh yes.
Well, one of the Can I jump in real quick?
Of course.
One of the cool things about the GoTenna is you can set it into relay mode without connecting a phone to it or anything. So I'm pretty sure you click the button 3 times on the side of it, and then it's going to give you a prompt with the light, and then you press it 3 more times, and it goes into relay mode. And what that means is your range is effectively getting doubled if there's a real relay node in the area. It'll hit the relay and then go to the next GoTenna device, which is pretty nifty.
So we've already pieced now out that there are 2 different modes. One is a pairing mode with your phone right there, right? And one is a relay mode. So Richard, do you have to connect the GoTenna with your phone if it's only used for relay?
Nope, just like Matt said, that you can put it in this mode. So just have it charged, and then you push this 3 clicks and then 3 more clicks, and then you hang it from a tree. You can put it anywhere you want between wherever you and your base station are. And it, without being paired to a phone, will continue to relay messages. So that's very convenient. So absolutely a great way to extend your range.
And also in the chat, who said it? Rolando Tech said, so it won't work in the basement. Actually, if you have one set in your living room or the top of your house or wherever, you can use this one in relay mode and have your in the basement, so you can connect between these two, because even with the walls, you can send through small range. And so the GoTenna on top will send the message, spread it out, and you can chill in the basement with your computer playing whatever you want.
Right, and also it's because it's paired with Bluetooth. I mean, I work in my basement here too, and I can get it somewhere, you know, that's a little more exposed just through the Bluetooth pairing too. So that's another way. If you're actually kind of below ground and want to get it up a little higher, you can do that.
So when wanting to get the maximum range, I've heard that some people have used it in skydiving and have reached amazing distances. But in general, where's the best way to put it, especially outside of nature?
Oh, well, it's like most radio technology. The higher up you are, the better. So that's going to help. I mean, you were mentioning the gliders. There's an app called Glider Link where these guys are flying around in, I believe it's unpowered gliders, and they don't want to collide with each other. So they've made an app using the GoTenna SDK, which is a free SDK, and they've created this app to communicate, and they get tremendous mile. All the mileage records are from these guys. I've heard of people on boats. That's another, you know, if you're using anything on water, you know, that's a great environment. Nature is good too, though. I mean, your open areas and high areas. I think somebody put on Twitter, I have to find the link, they were up on a mountain, I believe it was in Germany or somewhere in Europe, and they were going down sort of to the base, and they got a really long mileage that way. I forget what they said it was, but it was very long, and that was because it was just from the top of the mountain to the base. That's probably not a typical situation. I mean, meshes, there's sort of 2 ways to extend your range. One is to increase the number of units, just, you know, by having a little more density of units, and the other is to have sort of the open area. So just depends on the situation. If you were in a concert or something, there'd just be more people. It wouldn't matter so much about obstacles. So yeah, but higher is better if you can. But it's made for being stuck on your backpack and walking around. You don't have to hang them from trees. That's only if you want to extend your mileage sort of beyond a normal amount.
We have in the chat a question from T-John TV. More nodes in the mesh network equals more useful and robust. So Matt, is that correct, or how does this people power network work?
Sorry, yes.
I mean, I think it definitely makes it more robust, right? You think of it from like it's like a parallel street that runs alongside our existing infrastructure. You know, right now we don't have that much penetration. We don't have that many nodes up, but as time goes on, you know, but right now you can easily do a couple hops off of the main internet, and then finally, once it hits a phone that's connected to the internet, it'll go into the traditional networks. I mean, Richard was saying earlier about disaster zones. One of the big things that's happening in the GoTenna community is in Puerto Rico, and you know their current infrastructure is an absolute mess after the most recent hurricane. It was already pretty bad, but the hurricane made it, you know, way worse. And what a lot of people are doing is these GoTennas use just a regular micro USB plug, and they use very low power. So they're creating these solar boxes that they're able to hang up, and that are just relay nodes all the time. They're just constantly. So if you have these nodes all alongside the regular internet, sending messages and sending Bitcoin transactions, sending data, it becomes that much harder to block.
And we have another fantastic question in the chat by Kato Miner, who was also on the World Crypto Network during the Hackers Congress, showing his Nodl, the portable Bitcoin full node and Lightning node. So that's a nice project, check it out. And he asks, what about interference from other devices using the same band, such as Sigfox or LoRaWAN or garage remote controls? So Richard, how about this interference?
Well, one thing to keep in mind is that it's really optimized for short, bursty data. So you're not streaming continuous video like we are now. So if there happens to be some interference, I don't know exactly which bands those devices are on, but I mean, I think the odds of interfering is fairly low, and it will resend. So if it sends at the same time you happen to be using a device that maybe interferes in the same frequency, it'll just resend. So I don't anticipate that being a big problem. I mean, it's made to cooperate with other devices in that band that it operates in, which is an open band used by other devices. So yeah, so I wouldn't anticipate you would find that to be a big problem.
You have to figure out how to send some AI from the GoTenna to every other device, so it will extend the range, and you have relay modes with your garage and everything.
Right. You can build it in. That would be great.
And put it on a blockchain and ICO that. That's what we need.
Of course. ICO all the things.
Oh, well, and each GoTenna could be its own token, right? Or even its own blockchain. The possibilities are endless.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things I guess we'll get into a little more in our next podcast, is that, you know, a lot of times when you are talking about blockchains, you're going over a centralized, even though your blockchain is decentralized, you're still going through these very centralized ISPs. And if you're in a place like Turkey, they can just shut off the internet. China obviously has the Great Firewall of China. And these places, you know, you can't access through your local provider. So having, even if everyone doesn't have it, just to know that there's a way around some of these blockades, I think does create a lot of resilience for the network.
So I'd suggest let's just check out how this app from GoTenna actually looks like and how it is being used. So Neti has an unpaired phone with him. So Neti, could you share your screen, and let's just jump into the app, how it looks like and what the features are.
Yeah, sure. Just give me 1 second. Unfortunately, the connection between my phone and my Surface.
And so the app can be downloaded on the iOS App Store or the Google Play Store. So for the app itself, there shouldn't be any problem to download it. And then once you download it, the question is, do you want to connect with a new device? Sharing screen now?
It always drops off. It asks me if I want to connect it, and it says connection starts, and yeah, now it worked.
Perfect.
Perfect. Okay. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so let me share my screen. Okay, do you see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So what I have here is the GoTenna app. You just have to go to the App Store and type in GoTenna. The first thing you see is the right app, the GoTenna app. Okay. So I started. And I already bought one, so I will press get started. Of course, I already read the terms of use, but I don't want to read them again, so I just press agree. Okay, now GoTenna want to access my location, sure, and my contacts, so I can easily connect to Max. Okay, now it needs a name. I just use my Twitter name. Okay, phone or random ID. Oh.
So Richard, why is the phone number required here?
It's not required. You can use a random ID. A lot of people ask that. The phone is really just a convenience. I mean, you have a lot of people who just want to be able to connect to, like they know your phone number. So it's just a convenient way to find other people with the GoTenna.
Okay. So I just pressed next, and I of course tried the 30-day free trial. My GoTenna verification node is 44465.
Yeah, you also don't, it's not required to link your contacts either. That's just a convenience thing.
Yeah.
You could deny that technically.
Yeah.
Okay, so I choose my device, the GoTenna. Max, can you show your GoTenna, how it looks like? I think you already did it. So we have this badass here.
And Richard, what is the difference between the GoTenna and the GoTenna mesh?
So the first product was a GoTenna, which would basically allow you to go phone to phone, but it wouldn't hop between multiple phones. So that was the more recent device, is the GoTenna mesh, which lets you go to multiple phones. It used a different frequency as well, but the big difference is the meshing.
And it didn't have end-to-end encryption either, right, Richard?
That's a good point. Yeah, that's right. It was before I started, but it's true. They added the end-to-end encryption. That's important.
Okay, turn off nearby GoTenna devices that haven't been paired. Now I turn on mine.
And how do you pair, or how do you turn it on, Richard?
Turn on the device. So there's a button here next to where you charge it. I don't know if you can see that. So that's where you charge it, and there's a button right above, and you just push that, and it'll start to blink, and it'll sort of pulse seductively there. That lets you know it's waiting to pair. Mine just paired to my phone. That's why it stopped blinking. And you can also push that button to see if it's paired. So the light goes out once it's paired. Let's see, I can see it. There. So if I push on it, you can see it just flashes. And you can also, in the app, if you push on, what does it say, where the battery is, it'll also flash. So if you're not sure if you've got two colors and you don't know which one you're paired with, you can click on the battery picture in the side shelf, and it'll blink its front light. If you can see it there. Let's see, you can get by the. Oops. I'm trying to do this. There we go. And if I push here, it blinks the three lights. So that can be handy if you're just trying to figure out where it's at.
Okay. I now paired it, so I'll press test. Whoop. And if I press test, you see it flashes, so I know I'm connected to the right one. Okay, and press finish. Now, next thing I could do is to download an offline map or just send a message. The offline map is a nice thing if you go hiking or something like this and you don't have the mobile data, which is especially a thing in Germany, I guess. And you already have downloaded the map, so you can share the location to a friend, and he knows in the second you share it where you are, and you can view it already, right?
Right.
Perfect. Okay, let's send a message to Max. Should I?
Well, so we talked briefly that you can find contacts over the phone number, right, if you know their phone number. But how about this random ID? Is that the same process?
In that case, you would probably do it out of band. So if you were sort of privacy conscious there, you could send it a different way. You can also shout. So that's what I usually do if I'm just somewhere and I have a random ID, like at the HCPP in Prague. I just shouted, "Hello, Prague." And then anybody who also had a GoTenna could just reply and add me as a contact. So it's up to you how you want to do it. Because it is a radio, you can just shout out that I'm here, and then people can add you as a contact. So that's kind of a convenient way to do it as well if you're in just like a sort of a local area.
And when you have this, when you have your phone number and not a random ID, are there any privacy concerns with broadcasting your phone number?
Yeah, if you were shouting, I suppose. but no, there's no central server that this is recorded in. It's really just a way so that you can, if you know somebody's phone number is using one, then you sort of already know their ID. It's really just a convenience thing. But there's no central server that this stuff goes onto. And I think you mentioned before there's a map at imeshu.com, and that's also something you can just do voluntarily to show where you're at. And if you've got a lot of people do that if they want to show they've got a plugged in mesh. Yeah, there's a good map of the US. But this is all voluntary self-reporting, and it's not phoning home. It doesn't do anything like that. So we do take that aspect seriously. Yeah, see if you can. I think I'm on there somewhere, probably in this picture here somewhere. But you don't know if there aren't more. These are just the people who have gone to the trouble of putting a pin down.
And also, once they put that pin down, it doesn't get removed unless they actively remove it. So they might not even be online.
Exactly. So they could move. They could take it out for the day or not have it plugged in. It wouldn't update.
Okay, so then Neti, let's try out sending the first ever transaction for a mesh network here live on the World Crypto Network. So it's not the first mesh network transaction, but it definitely is the first for the World Crypto Network.
Okay.
What are you going to type in?
Okay, I sent it. My GoTenna blinks, and Max received it. Did it work, Max?
Awesome.
Max, you're muted.
So that was a transaction or a message that was not published to the internet, that was not published to any service provider. It was just from Neti's GoTenna to my GoTenna. And it was peer-to-peer in that sense, because there were no hops involved. So would the experience be any different when having several hops in the relay?
It would probably take a slightly longer amount of time, but you may not even notice. I suppose if you were one of the nodes in between, briefly this node would blink as it transferred the message. So somebody would see it blink, but they wouldn't be able to decrypt your message. That is, like, as Matthew mentioned, it's end-to-end encrypted. So no, and that green check is interesting because what that means when you got that green check, it had actually taken a return message sort of to prove that it had been delivered. So you actually know when you send it if it's been delivered, which is also handy. So that turnaround time from when he pushed send to when he got the green check, that shows you a round trip actually, the confirmation.
Okay, perfect. And so now we've showcased a group, a one-to-one chat, right, with only from one peer to the other and end-to-end encrypted. But there's also a group chat. So how many people can be in this group, and is it also encrypted?
Yes, it is encrypted. You know what? I don't know the exact number, but I think it's quite large, maybe 8 or 10, something like that. It might be larger.
I think it's 10.
10, yeah. And I again, it is encrypted, so you share an encryption key for that. So if you guys set up a group, that would be just for you guys.
I think we might have to switch from Telegram to GoTenna group chats.
Yeah. It's certainly better than a string in a can if you want to talk to your neighbors.
Yeah, but well, the thing is, right, stuff like Telegram, they have GIFs, they have pictures. So will there be an option of sending pictures or larger data packages over a mesh network?
It is possible. I mean, we have, like I mentioned before, an SDK, which is an open SDK. So it would take a certain amount of time to transfer an actual picture. It probably wouldn't be as practical as something like Telegram in that case. It's really, again, short bursty data. So that's why sending things like Bitcoin transactions or sending your GPS location. I think I've also seen somebody might have made an app that sent like short bits of audio. That might be possible. And that's, yeah, so that's not really what these are made for. It would be for, for a lot of audio-visual data, but for sending messages. And if you look at the way most people use their phones, they really do send more messages probably than they send. I mean, emojis, I guess we can say that counts too. That's sending a picture. So, but you're probably not going to you're not going to do live chatting over your GoTenna. And the trade-off there is range, and there's a real big gain from the range, and that if you want to build a mesh network, increasing the range has a non-linear effect on the amount of connectivity you can get. I mean, just doubling it doesn't just double the amount of connectivity you get. It goes as a square sort of, because you're able to connect to many more people.
One question, Richard, how long is the company or the project GoTenna already running?
Let's see. I don't have the exact date when the first GoTenna was done. I want to say it was 2015, something like that. I would have to look online. I didn't look that up. And I think GoTenna Mesh is about 1.5 years. Maybe Matt remembers exactly when it was launched.
And it's
been out a while.
Open source, right?
It's not open source, but there's an open SDK. So there's a free SDK that anybody can build on. So you can build open source applications. Like when we talk about TX10, that's an open source application. And what's closed source, what's in the SDK is the sort of low level things: send a message, send a group chat, send a broadcast. So I mean, most people are going to build above that anyway. So even though it is an open source, it's still kind of giving you the basics that you can build a lot of different applications. Nice.
You can say we still are early adopters of this thing.
Yeah, you're still early adopters, but the more the merrier. That's the great thing about Mesh. The more people who use it for different applications, the more everybody benefits. So it's great.
Nice. Should we have another look on the app and what you can do there?
Especially what I really like is the shout version or the shout possibility. So Matthew, could you go a bit more into the possibilities of using this as an open broadcast and where this can be useful?
Sure. So there is the shout chat. Welcome to Shouts. And everybody within my GoTenna mesh network, my mesh range, will receive this message I sent here. So if I tell, hello everyone, I'll send it, and now only Max receives this, I guess. Maybe Thomas also receives the message if he is inside of my range, but I don't think so.
Yeah, I already tried when you made the setup for your GoTenna to write or a message and to also shout out, but it didn't work. I don't have, maybe I'm not in your range.
Yeah. The cool thing, which maybe the people in, I don't know where strategy was, you talked about earlier, where they put up these GoTenna meshes. You can also how to use an emergency. I need some help. How to send an emergency message.
You have to go into settings, and then emergency settings, and then you can send, you can go to emergency chat, and then you are in the emergency chat. So Matthew, what are the features here, and where's the difference to the overall Shout version?
You asked me, right?
Well, let's give Matthew a chance to just be.
Oh, sorry.
But the other thing is, with the emergency, I'm pretty sure it's a physical button press of the GoTenna device. You press it 5 times in a row, and then it sends a predetermined emergency message out. It basically shouts it out. Am I wrong about that, Richard? Or you're on mute still.
That is correct. I'm not as familiar with this because I've been sort of focusing on this GoTenna TX10 stuff, but I do know that there is a button press for that. I mean, the idea, I think one of the motivations for this is if you were, in an avalanche, or you were, you fell down a ravine, it should be something very easy for you to click on. And do you have the setup there? You can see. Maybe you don't see it right now, but like you were saying, you can put in your contact information there.
So if I write a message here, every time I press the button 5 times in a row, it will automatically send this emergency message.
Let's see.
If you go back once and go back into the settings, and then emergency settings, and then emergency beacon. Here you have 120 characters for critical information that you can then save and send to anyone.
And I'm pretty sure it automatically sends your last known location.
Right.
Based on the phone GPS, because the device doesn't have a GPS itself.
Oh, so why does the Samurai device, why does the GoTenna device not have a GPS location? And why does it rely on the phone for that?
I think it's just to make it more low power and probably less expensive as well. If you're always, primarily going to have it paired with a cell phone, your cell phone GPS is going to be more accurate than, well, I mean, maybe it wouldn't be more accurate, but it would be redundant to put it in the device. I mean, I suppose that's something you could see coming down the line if there was a demand for it, but isn't strictly necessary. I think if you're typing a message on your phone and you've got a GPS.
So Max sent an emergency message when Moon with his location. So I can help him now and tell him that the price of Bitcoin in US dollar or euro does not matter.
Emergency solved.
Okay. So you can share your location on the app. I can also ask for Max location if I want to. I just press the plus button down here and either attach my location or request Max location. Where are you, Max?
I was going to add, there was one thing about the emergency beacon I forgot to mention is whereas a normal shout doesn't hop, a emergency beacon shout will hop 6 hops. So that's another safety feature of the beacon.
Nice, that's some good range. 6 hops. How long does a normal message or transaction hop? How many hops can be there in between? Is it endless?
It's not endless, but if it's a private message, let's see, it's increased recently in the most recent firmware. So up to 6 mesh hops. So that's the maximum both for emergency and private. So, and six is quite a long way.
Yeah, especially if you're outside.
Yeah.
And so what we see here is Neti has requested my location. It pops up for me here, and I can either accept this or deny this. So as soon as I click accept, right there, it pops up that I have now shared my location with him. So is this encrypted as well?
Yeah, a private message, including your location, is encrypted. So there's a private key for you too when you're communicating. I think the only thing that isn't encrypted essentially would be a shout message, because everybody's going to pick it up then.
Is it like the game you used to play as a child, and you whisper something to somebody, and if it goes around long enough, there comes out a complete different message?
Yeah, no, that doesn't happen. Fortunately, we have digital technology and error correction and a lot of other great algorithms in there. So your message shouldn't come out too scrambled, although I guess we could get a six mesh net at some point and just see if the phones want to play around with us or not. But no, it should be perfect. If it gets through,
Okay.
it'll be perfect.
Good to know.
And can messages be lost on the way, or is it atomic?
Well, they could be lost if you didn't have a connection. So if your mesh is broken, then it would be broadcast and not necessarily heard. But it does also, I believe that it will actually store, I think it's 100 messages. So it could try to rebroadcast when you move around. I'm not completely sure about that, but I know that it'll store 100 messages in the device itself. That might just be when it's in relay mode that matters.
And when storing this information, how can it be accessed just having this device? So for example, if a malicious actor picks this up, can he crack it open and somehow connect and read these last 100 messages?
That's a good question. I mean, you would have to read, well, it's storing the messages you send on your phone. And I don't know about the messages that are stored in it as it's relaying. That I don't know. I mean, if it's just a relay, it's going to be encrypted, so there wouldn't be anything to read. And I don't believe, I can check for you, and I don't believe that it stores messages that you're sending, because those would be stored on your phone. That's a good question, but I don't believe it stores in that way. I mean, I suppose there could be some residual. I don't know the answer exactly. They probably would, if they get your phone, then they definitely would get it.
Okay, and can there be more than one phone connected to one device?
No, it should be one device per phone. That's true. So you couldn't get two. But you can use other Bluetooth devices, might be interesting for people to know. Like I can go running with a Bluetooth headset and have that connected. I don't know if that's a feature of the low energy Bluetooth, but it's kind of convenient.
Yeah, I was in the car today, and it corrected to my car and to the GoTenna.
Oh yeah. It's a Bluetooth low energy Bluetooth 4 plus actually. So if anybody has that on their phone, for instance, you can know that it'll use those features.
What we talked about earlier was the relay mode.
Oh yeah, there you go.
You have some small instruction here too, how to use it. And that's the reason you said you want to have two GoTennas sold always and not only one, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's one reason, is you can use one as a relay, for example. Or it just depends on where you're at. You know, either give it to another person, or you can have one as a relay and then extend your range with the single one.
And to turn on the relay mode, it's really easy. You just turn on the GoTenna mesh and then press the button. I can't show it right now because I'm sharing my screen. 3 times, triple press, and then your light will pulse, and you're set up. You have a relay set up fully. That's nice. I love GoTenna because they are so convenient. You don't have to make a huge setup. It's like setting up WhatsApp. It's really that easy.
Yeah.
So nice.
Important for a consumer device. Here, I'll just show you when it's in the relay mode, and you push the power button once. See how it blinks 3 times? That's how you can just check that you're in relay mode. So if you want to verify you did that correctly. And again, the great part about that is you don't need another phone when it's in that mode. It's just autonomously going to relay. So you can build a little ant trail back to wherever you're at. If you want to be in your log cabin somewhere sending Bitcoin transactions, you can do that.
And can a GoTenna be both a active connected phone to a connected device to a phone and a relay node, or is it one only?
Well, when you're using it normally, so when you've got it paired to your device to send messages, it's also relaying. So it isn't just relaying in relay mode. Relaying mode just doesn't require a phone. So yeah, it's definitely relaying.
Perfect. And oh yeah, we had another question in the chat. If you can connect other third-party applications to this mesh network. So for example, Telegram, as we talked about earlier, could you use a Telegram message and send this over a mesh network?
Well, if it's open source, I don't know if Telegram is open source. I don't think it is it?
I think it is, not sure though.
If it is, then you could, sure, you could hook it up with our open free SDK. Somebody also asked me about Fire Chat, and I thought that would be interesting, but I looked into it, and I didn't see a free version, open source version of Fire Chat, but that'd also be an interesting integration.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Telegram's completely open source. Fire Chat was what? Was it using Bluetooth or Wi-Fi?
That was Bluetooth. That was the one they used in the was it Hong Kong when they had the protests?
Yeah,
so
that's what I remember too.
Right. So I looked. Somebody told me that it was open source, but I couldn't find it on GitHub. But maybe there's a free version out there. I just haven't located it. But I think that would be an interesting integration with different messaging apps for sure. And you know, there's also the possibility of making kind of gateways between these things too. Even if you can't directly integrate, if there's an API that lets you get the messages, you know, maybe somebody could build an app to do a gateway. That would be interesting.
What about, Richard, what about open hardware? Is there any intention here to open up the mesh to allow people to build their own hardware?
Not that I'm aware of, but we do have a very active hardware hacking community. So if you go to the community forum in the iMeshu site, people have cracked these open, violated probably all sorts of FCC regulations to add antennas and different things to them. And while that's not something, you know, we give you blueprints for, we don't try to stand in your way either. And I think there's even been a hint or two that's gone out over the community forum on how to do that for people. If you're there you're on the forum. Do a search for let's see, what's it called? Moan, MOAN. There's some good pictures there. So somebody is the mother of all nodes. Somebody has basically taken their GoTenna and put it in a Pelican case with a bigger battery, bigger antenna. There's the antenna there. They put solar panels on it. You can read all about this. This guy that's doing it is he's just a genius with this stuff. Where's that picture there? So yeah, so even though it's not open hardware, if you're the kind of person who likes to tinker with hardware, you could probably violate your warranty and play around with it. So certainly people doing that. I mean, most of the open application side is going to be more on the software side.
Right. I thought it was pretty cool that to send a Bitcoin transaction, you don't even need the GoTenna app. You can just use the transaction Tenna app, and it links directly into the mesh.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's open source, even though the GoTenna app isn't completely open source.
Yeah, yeah. And like I mentioned before, there's this glider link program people have made. So they've made a full application that doesn't rely on our particular app, but sort of replicates that functionality and specializes it for people in gliders. And I think a lot of different communities will build applications, just like like the Samurai Wallet team have built one for the Bitcoin community. There's going to be other communities too. But the great thing is, because they're all on the same protocol, if you're relaying Bitcoin transactions, you could also be relaying glider link transactions, for instance, or glider link information. So sort of these different communities can sort of overlap and support each other in some way by using the same underlying hardware and protocol.
And I guess this is, inherently with mesh networks is the communication and the interaction. So maybe Matthew, how have you experienced the community ethics and the community values of this mesh networking community?
I mean, it's all these types of projects, they're led by their community. If you don't have a strong community, they're not going anywhere. And the mesh space in general, people have always been very passionate about. And you see some really, really cool things coming to fruition because of it.
Yeah, and in that sense, it really combines perfectly well with Bitcoin. And just the ethics and the technology is, in my opinion, the perfect fit. So I can't wait the next video to check out GoTenna on how to send Bitcoin over this mesh network. Richard, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think that when we first brought up this idea with using a GoTenna for Bitcoin transactions, we found also the Samurai Wallet team had already a project called Mule Tools. So if you're interested in not just GoTenna, but the whole idea of decentralizing Bitcoin transactions, you can see a lot of great projects in that space, because mesh is not just one technology. It's the theory is you can also gateway through different technologies. So maybe you've got a local mesh for your city, and cities are connected with some other some other technology. So we see this as an important part of a kind of a decentralized communication infrastructure that can take sort of many forms. But yeah, definitely, you see the Bitcoin community as being a real good match for this, both sort of philosophically and in having a need for it.
Mm-hmm. And there is this version of GoTenna Plus that you can get for a monthly subscriptions of yearly subscription of $9, as far as I know. So what are the additional features that you can buy with this GoTenna Plus?
So GoTenna Plus, let's see, GoTenna Plus, the primary feature that I'm aware of here is that it allows you to have a gateway for SMS messages. So let's see, I'm just looking up the summary here because I'm a very poor salesman. I know sort of my little niche here. Let me look it up here. So sorry about that.
So what you basically have with GoTenna Plus?
Here it is. Yeah, it is $9.99 a year. And right, so you get topological maps, you get the SMS network relay. So basically it'll hop to multiple phones until it gets to an internet relay, somebody with internet connectivity. And then your message will go out to the SMS network. So it doesn't do an SMS from the out node, it just does an internet connection. But then it gets onto an SMS network. And then it can go to anybody in the world, basically. So that gives you kind of a taste of a gateway system where it goes from mesh network through a gateway of the internet and then to SMS. Let's see.
Right. Who can be this gateway to connect to the internet?
I believe it's anybody, potentially. I might have to look that one up. But it's potentially anybody. But like I said, it doesn't use their SMS. It just sends something over the internet, sort of like TXTenna does, where TXTenna connects to the internet to send a Bitcoin transaction. This would connect to the internet to send an SMS. And then that goes to a separate service that sends that SMS.
It's probably using Twilio or something like that, right?
Yeah, that's pretty much what it's doing. So there's
like an internet-based SMS provider, and then it sends out a text message through that.
Yeah, exactly. And there's also location tethering. That was a feature I actually just recently started playing around with. So if you wanted to send your location every minute or every 5 minutes or every 10 minutes, that's something you can get with the GoTenna Plus. And this would be for hikers, for instance, or skiers, people who are outdoors. And you can have it send just on a repeated basis. And the other feature you were talking about for the Plus is just to save things like your speed, distance, and travel elevation. So just more advanced statistics. So some fun features there. Especially if you're using it a lot, you definitely can get some value out of that.
Hansel and Gretel already had this amazing technology. It would have been so much easier for them.
Oh, there, good, you brought up the picture.
And so this GoTenna Plus can be used with the main GoTenna mesh, right? But then there is also on your website the GoTenna Pro.
Right.
So
whereas like the mesh is using its unlicensed spectrum, UHF spectrum, the Pro uses licensed spectrum. And so this is primarily going to be for first responders, military, or NGO type uses. And that's, like for instance, people fighting the forest fires in California could have really used them when they got shut off by the local mobile carrier. I think it was Verizon shut off their use of the centralized service, just for some stupid reason. So this has been a real popular among, first responders primarily, but also there's military uses, things like that. And so these groups have licenses for these spectrums that are used, that are different from the unlicensed spectrum. So they maybe have a little more range and are less maybe used for other things.
I mean, one of the issues here is it's a regulatory issue. So the Pro is able to have is more powerful, right? That's well, true. While the consumer device needs to obey the regs.
Yeah, that's true. That's another good point. So there's regulation over not just the frequencies you can use, but how much power you can put out over those frequencies and not have a license. So if you're a ham operator, the rules are different. But for just anybody who doesn't have a ham license, so this is 5 watts. The GoTenna mesh is 1 watt, because that keeps us within the unlicensed regime. So that's a big difference.
And one of the cool things about the consumer GoTenna mesh device is that it's changing its power and spectrum based on location, right? There's something going on there.
Yeah.
So that it can work in all different places with different rules in place.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so it detects where it's at from the GPS on your phone, and it can then tune itself to whether you're in Europe. So when you're in Europe, it tunes it to a different, slightly different frequency and slightly different power compared to when you're in the US. I think Singapore's got their own. There's a few that it can pick from. And that's listed in the FAQ somewhere. If you're living somewhere that isn't Europe or the US, then you can look on the FAQ and see what it supports. But it's a very, very many places. And you think about how cool this is. This is something that if you had a ham license, of course, maybe you could do it, maybe not this inexpensively, but this sort of brings that power to people who don't have the time or the inclination to go get a ham license and sort of invest in a lot of equipment. So it's a cool way to make this available to just everybody.
And can the normal GoTenna mesh be connected to the GoTenna Pro?
Not at this time. I've heard people request that. You would have to have some sort of gateway that does that. But no, not at the moment, no.
I mean, the biggest problem to me with that is that they're not getting the emergency shouts, right? If you're in like a disaster zone or something, you have firemen, first responders out there with the Pro, they're not going to be getting any emergency shouts from the regular GoTenna users.
Yeah, I believe it's something that's, I might have to look that one up, but I think it's mostly a software issue. I don't think there's anything that stops it from happening. So I suspect that's something that people are looking at. But again, you know, it's still pretty early for this stuff. And I think you probably will end up with gateways. Somebody could have both, basically. Part of the problem is that if you tune your radio to one frequency, it's not going to necessarily hear the other frequencies. So even in a Pro, you have to tune it to a certain amount of frequencies. But I'm not an expert on that. I think if we looked on the iMeshu site, there's a bigger discussion about that there.
So what are some additional features that are coming to the GoTenna, hopefully soon?
I don't know. I don't know exactly. There's always a lot of things cooking. I'm not in the main office. I'm a remote employee here, so I probably don't get all the scuttlebutt that I should. But I mean, I can mostly say that it's a very actively developed product. This isn't this isn't the end of what you'll see. Already we've had one major release. So it used to be a private chat was 3 hops, and now a private chat is 6 hops. So that was just changing the software. Ram, who's our chief scientist, has had, I think he's like 30 years from working on mobile mesh networks. And he's constantly, they're working on sort of the next version and the next version of just ways to make it more efficient at meshing and less overhead, so you get more data, less sort of communication infrastructure overhead. So there's a lot of, mostly I would just say it's a very active development going on. We're not sort of just stopping here. And a lot of it is happening in software. A lot of things can still be done. So that's pretty exciting. I know of one thing that might be happening this year, but I probably shouldn't say because I don't really know for sure. But I know that the project that you're interested in, Max, is to combine it with a Raspberry Pi and maybe get a satellite dish connection, things like that. So I think that other people are thinking that way too, and it's something that would be interesting to see. I totally agree.
I mean, guys, honestly, mesh networks, satellites, Bitcoin full node. What else do you want? Come on.
That would be pretty cool. I would love to see that. Yeah. Who wouldn't?
Right. And so as long as one person in the mesh or one node in the mesh has access to the satellite, would this give all the other participants in the mesh access?
Yeah, I mean, that would be a pretty cool way to do it. If you had one gateway essentially that was rebroadcasting what was on the what was coming down from the satellite, or the other way, if you send a transaction and it goes to the, rather than everybody having a satellite dish, you could be running, walking around, not with a satellite on your head, and still be able to get it through a gateway up to the satellite. That would be pretty cool. So I think that's a great example. And that's probably just one example. I mean, there's a lot of people with a lot of different radio technologies out there too, and being able to combine them is a very cool possibility. Absolutely.
And we have here Jeremy in the chat saying, "When go Tinder?" I do think that will be fantastic.
Yeah, I don't know, that's going to create some creepy possibilities, I think. but sure, why not? Privacy is important. I mean, if some of these leaks don't prove that, Facebook leak, for instance, I mean, how many people want to preserve their privacy in a physical way? That, I suppose that's one example of that.
Well, but just think about the possibilities. After you've chatted a little bit, and you want to hook up, you can send the location already and ping, and it's there. So perfect.
That's true. Well, you know what? We have a free open SDK, and anybody can build what they want. I encourage everybody to give it a try.
But I think it's more convenient to just shout out in the shout chat, hey there, I'm looking for a nice girl between 19 and 22. Yeah, if everybody's interested, just send me a message. Here's my ID.
Well, you know, the kids will find something to do with any new technology, so it could happen. I mean, I like the idea too of like I was at the Venice Beach this last summer, and they have these scooters, these what you call LimeWire, I think makes one. There's a few others out there, and they're communicating with cell service to figure out your payment when you rent these scooters. I thought it would be cool if they had a GoTenna mesh, because the scooters are pretty dense and they could communicate with each other. They wouldn't all have to have a mobile communication in that case. I think I mean that's a possibility for this technology generally, is the sort of Internet of Things, and what can you do with things talking to each other, not just people but devices. So that's a cool possibility too.
Also, inside of a company, you can let your machines communicate with each other in a secure, private, peer-to-peer network. That's nice.
Yeah, true. I mean, you can do that with Wi-Fi as well, but maybe you're more spread out. You want to send like, lower bandwidth data, but over a longer distance. It could definitely work. So definitely possibilities there. I mean, I'm waiting. If somebody hasn't done this already, I believe probably somebody has, put one into a drone and then fly it around. You know, you would get great coverage. You know, you could create your own sort of mobile network that way. They're quite light. If you feel it. I suppose if you took off the aluminum case, it would be even lighter. So I think that would be kind of cool to see too.
And so currently, of course, this is still in the early phases. What can we as individuals do to advance this technology, Matthew?
I mean, look, the main thing that everyday users can do is you go out and buy yourself 2 GoTenna devices, play around with it, set one up in relay mode, help your local community. You have an extra relay, and just read and learn about this tech, I'm very hopeful that mesh technology is in our future and will be sooner rather than later. And just, you know, support good companies and good people who are doing the good work. And if you can learn it yourself, then, you know, contribute even more.
I'd like to see somebody smuggle one of these into Julian Assange. I think that would be a great application.
Do we even know where he is anymore? Is he still in the embassy?
I think so. I just saw something where he's gotten a little of his internet back. But when I first heard they cut off his internet, I was like, you know, get this man a mesh network.
It's a nice marketing play. I like the idea that you said with the scooters and stuff. Like if you could get if you work in a company that has a lot of trucks that are always out and about, or you do maintenance on different infrastructure projects like lights and stuff. If you can put these types of devices into those, you could really expand the network really quickly. I mean, I remember I read something about the U.S. Postal Service was looking into additional monetization by putting sensors and stuff on their trucks, because they're already driving all around the country.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
So if you work at like DHL or something, you know, start talking to management, try and get some of these nodes into the trucks.
Right, save them on cell phone information, you know, cell phone bandwidth as well. I've also heard that if you've got meter readers, people who read the power meters, if they put something like this in the power meters, first of all, it'd be plugged in all the time, and you'd have a really dense mesh in that case. Somebody on Twitter, I think, worked at a company that did that in some particular country. So a lot of possibilities for mesh. I mean, we're conditioned to think about our telecommunication as a centralized service, but it really, when you're carrying around these incredibly advanced devices, two-way radios in your pocket, it's just outdated. And I think it's a trend that I agree with you. I think we're gonna like to see really catch on. I was gonna say one thing about the scooters is, now imagine your scooters take Bitcoin or Lightning Network, and they want to do that in a way that isn't censored. You could have a completely autonomous paid, device operating on a decentralized network with a decentralized currency. That would be the ultimate, in my opinion. I think that's a cool hacker project somebody's got to do.
Absolutely. And talking about amazing decentralized currencies, we've just received another tip here on Tallycoin. So we now have 0.258, that's 25.8 million Satoshis on our goal to raise 0.3 Bitcoin to get the Purism laptop. So we just got this one donation in down here, which makes it now 27 donations. So that's amazing. Tallycoin is really cool. By the way, video integration now and a description. So I hope you do like Tallycoin just as much as we do here at the World Crypto Network. And thank you very much for the donations. That is amazing. And donations are, of course, only one way of using Bitcoin, but there are many others. And one will soon be the TX10. So sending Bitcoin over mesh networks, which will be the next video here upcoming on the World Crypto Network about the GoTenna series. So Piers, if you like GoTenna, if you do like a decentralized peer-to-peer encrypted mesh network, then in my opinion, GoTenna is quite a useful option. But Richard, are there any other companies that have a consumer-grade ready mesh network?
I believe so. I think I got Google Ads for some other ones. I mean, I'm not the expert, so I probably couldn't tell you. But GoTenna was the first, and I believe is the most advanced. So if there are any others, we don't feel a lot of competition from them. So.
Could you imagine one day you have a GoTenna inside your phone because technology gets bigger and smaller? So you can choose if you want to message via the normal internet or service connection, or if you want to use a private peer-to-peer communication system with everyone around you.
Yeah, that's a great idea. If you remember a while back, Google had this project, I think it was called was it Mosaic or something, where you could basically snap together pieces of your mobile phone. And GoTenna actually worked on that project. We tried to make a device to add a GoTenna module that you could add to your Android phone. But then Google canceled the project. So there's a problem with centralized projects right there, or centralized companies. So yeah, we definitely thought along those lines. And I agree that would be a nice future. I mean, a lot of the problems you have is that the mobile phone technology is dictated by the mobile carriers to their benefit. Of course, they're not going to want to encourage that. So that's why you sort of need somebody coming from the outside to make that possible. I mean, we built the device because no mobile carrier was going to just do it of their own free will. We have to prove that people have to demand it. And if enough people demand it, then it'll be something the mobile phone makers will consider, I think.
I hope the guys from Purism listened to what you just said, Richard. I would love to see a Purism decentralized open source smartphone with a built-in GoTenna mesh network. That would be so awesome.
That would be great. That would be great. Yes, and that's where it's going to have to come from.
They have a phone coming too, Purism, right?
Oh yes, the Hillebrand 5, complete open source software and hardware that treasures your privacy. That's why I'm so excited to almost have filled up the fundraiser here, because this will give us a chance of showing the Purism laptop. But of course, as you said, there are, for example, here the Hillebrand 5, a security and privacy focused phone. So I'm really looking forward on the general move towards open sourcing, towards decentralizing, towards giving the individual user much more power. And that is, of course, a company like Pearson, but also then a company like GoTenna. So the implications of this are quite astounding. So do you guys see any other interesting technologies that will push us towards liberty?
I mean, I think the hardware front is really important and really underrepresented right now. You know, you have Purism, you have a couple others, but Purism is really leading the way with their hardware switches. I think, you know, there needs to be a bit of a reckoning where people realize that privacy is important, and until then, we're not really going to have properly secure hardware.
I was going to say also you mentioned earlier the full nodes. I think I've seen a lot of trend in that direction this year. I've got my Raspberry Blitz, which I got at the Hacker. Yeah, got that at the Hack Day in Berlin. And I think, you know, that's still, you know, it's not as turnkey as your average person might like, but it's getting much closer. And I think this whole debate we had in 2017 about people running their full nodes, and that argument was won. But now I think we need to see the hardware come out that even pushes that into people who wouldn't normally think they could run a 24/7 full node. That's an important technology, and these all kind of converge to create this truly decentralized network.
Oh yes, and absolutely check out the amazing Raspbian Blitz, which is here a all-in-one package with both a SSD, a Raspberry Pi, and a LCD screen. It comes with a Bitcoin full node and Lightning full node enabled. And then you can also check out nodl.it for a nice hosted full node for BTC Pay Server already integrated. With both a hardware wallet platform and a Lightning payment solution by Keto Miner here in the chat. Full nodes everywhere, absolutely. That's the world that we should get going to, and hopefully we can reach it soon. But I am quite comfortable that technologies like, for example, GoTenna will help us there. So this is really, really interesting. Richard, we've already talked about a lot today. Is there anything that we've been missing? Anything that you would still like to catch up on?
Those. I mean, you've hit the main points. Very eager to talk about TX10. That's sort of what I've been focused on most recently. So, hacking the code still, you know, trying to make it better. And, you know, I just want to encourage people to really try, you know, if you have an idea, something that can be decentralized with a GoTenna, do get involved in trying to develop. I mean, I think, you know, this technology is out there and it's getting easier and easier to use. And that's one of the things that I think GoTenna supplies, besides a consumer-ready product, is a very low barrier to entry to anybody who wants to develop their own application. So I encourage people to really look at both of those things: build the network, build the tools. I think would be my action call. Thanks. And thanks for all your support too, I got to say. And I should also shout out to Samurai, because they're the ones who really made this possible for TX10, which we'll get into next talk. But they're an example of this, picking the technology up and running with it. So whatever decentralization itch you have to scratch, I think I really encourage people to get involved and build a network by having GoTennas and having the technology that we talked about for decentralization, but also build it out.
Matthew, what are you most excited about this mesh networking technology in general, and anything else that you would like to plug?
Honestly, like, everything is moving so much faster than I expected. And that's humbling and just really good to see. I think the Bitcoin community in general is a very strong action-oriented community that there's a lot of people participating and developing, as Richard said, and it's just a really good fit with the mesh community. There was always a lot of overlap, and you see with this Samurai integration with this GoTenna app, just how much excitement is coming from the Bitcoin community. Like, I can't imagine how many more nodes we're going to have on the network now that there's Bitcoin support. There's going to be way more nodes, and that's just a net benefit for everyone. It's a net benefit for Bitcoin users. It's a net benefit for GoTenna users, and it's a net benefit for just any old schmuck on the street who might pick up a GoTenna in the future.
Perfect. Yes, I absolutely agree, Matthew. And Neti, what are you most excited about this new technology, and how can you use it?
Can I really say this online, live on the stream, Max? Can I really? You think it's a good idea? Yeah, you can chat anonymously with everyone you want. So maybe with your local friend who sells you the best fruits ever. And you cannot be tracked or traced or anything like this. I will especially use it as a new group chat between you, Thomas, and me, because we chat a lot, and having this not stored anywhere on centralized servers is nice because it's our company secrets. What I could also imagine is having GoTennas in some companies where you can where you have to be silent and need a really good encryption or something like this, so you can chat anonymously, no, not anonymously, but direct with others without anybody having the possibility to read your chats. Yes, that's one of the best use cases I can think of, especially in large companies, because you are all in one bureau, and yes, have this form of communication between you and your boss and you and your coworker.
And Thomas, same for you. What do you think about this technology and use cases for you?
Yeah, I definitely looking forward to the Bitcoin satellite, which supports the mesh network. But for me, I really like the idea of GoTenna because 6 hops is pretty far distance, and you can use it when you go hiking or when you're outdoors and the connection is really bad, and still want to stay in touch with your with the people around you or the guys you're out with, and it's really good. Yeah, also in Germany, where the connection is not always that good, it's perfect for that. Yeah.
And what I also thought about, I know you don't have this big problem in the US, but in Europe, if we travel from Germany to Switzerland, we have this high roaming fees, which means you have to pay 5 or 6 euros a day to have a connection with SMS or with internet or anything like this. You could just turn your phone into the airplane mode, and use GoTenna to connect to communicate with your friends. So if one, like your ad says on the website, wants to go hiking, the other one wants to try the best beer in the world, and that's the German beer. And the other person wants to see a river or hang out with friends or try to see how a Bitcoin ATM works in Switzerland. You can just do it and stay in communication without paying roaming fees by just using the GoTennas. And the more people use it, the more the bigger your bandwidth, your range. Yeah, that's nice. Switzerland could also bring up some GoTennas to make it more tourist friendly. you should do it, Switzerland.
Maybe people who come to ski in the Alps could use that, I think. Be useful.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And I personally am really looking forward to TX10 especially, because I do use Bitcoin quite a lot, and especially here regionally, there are some farmers where I can get my fruits, my potatoes, and what else with Bitcoin. But the problem is that up there, they neither have Wi-Fi nor mobile internet connection, because thank you, Germany, for good internet quality. And actually having a possibility of sending Bitcoin over a mesh network is really, really, really useful. I trust them and they kind of trust me, so we can do the transaction, the Bitcoin transaction right now when I'm back having internet connection. But still, having a direct payment, really, really useful. So especially in these areas where there are not many, not a lot of good internet connection, then this is really a nice way to go, including, for example, festivals and other gatherings of many, many people. I do think that there are a lot of opportunities for mesh networks here. So, Richard, thank you very much for joining us today here on the World Crypto Network. Maybe any last words, and where can the people find you?
Yeah, so I agreed with everything everybody said. I think you guys have the right vision, and I completely agree with these possibilities. I'm on Twitter at Ari Myers there. That's good you brought that up. I also would encourage people to go to iMeshU and go to our forum and just find out what other people are doing with the mesh network. I think that's, you'll find, like I was talking about before, really many different communities with different interests all being involved here. There's actually we have a decentralization, a blockchain sort of decentralization discussion. And I think if you look there, you'll see a lot of other people who are interested in what can be done in that realm with the GoTenna mesh. So yeah, that's it. Thanks all for listening, and I am just so excited to have this started, because I think this is just the beginning for not just for GoTenna, but for GoTenna and Bitcoin as well. I think we're going to see a lot of exciting things now that the ball is rolling. So looking forward to our next chat.
Oh yeah, the next chat hopefully soon. And hopefully we'll be joined by Matthew again. Matthew, where can the people find you?
Thanks again for having me, guys. It's been a pleasure to be on. Humbled to be here with Richard. Another big thanks to him and GoTenna for all their hard work and everyone else in the community. You can find me on Twitter. My handle is @Matt_Odell. And I have a weekly podcast with Marty Bent called Tales from the Crypt. If you search it in your podcast app, we're actually recording later today, this week's episode.
Oh, absolutely. Really much looking forward to this one. And I do enjoy really all of the episodes that you put out there, both the casual chats with the hosts or with the guests, but also, and I do like the rabbit hole recap, especially, and not just for the name, but also for the recap of what has happened down the rabbit hole. So thank you very much, Matt, for joining us. And then Neti, any last words? And where can people find you?
People can find me on Twitter or on Telegram. I'm not that active on Twitter yet, but Max told me to be. So I guess I'll improve my Twitter game. Yeah. I'm also a part of CoinApp Consulting together with Max and Thomas, where we bring mass adoption to everyone. Site's currently under construction, so you don't see much, but soon it will be released. Yeah, just text me on Telegram. It's what's my Telegram again? t.me/NetiHeft. You can send me a message, ask me anything about Bitcoin you want. I don't know everything, but I hope I can help you guys. I'm looking forward to it.
Perfect. And Thomas, any last words from you?
Yeah, you can also find me on Twitter. Yeah, like Max showed it. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to the things upcoming. And I'm also, as Neti said, a part of CoinUp Consulting. And yeah, try to bring Bitcoin to people and new people into Bitcoin. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Piers, it was amazing. Thank you very much for joining us today here on the World Crypto Network. You can find out more about me on Twitter at HillebrandMax, and also on my personal website, towardsliberty.com. Especially check out the library section, Bitcoin Library, Austrian Economics Library. Really useful stuff up there. We have talked a lot today about GoTenna, the mesh network that is sleek in design, lightweight, and easily pairable with your smartphone to send chat messages and your location and all other fancy stuff that you might need for going off the grid, which I do hope that you will do, because as this GIF clearly shows right here, it is really nice off the grid. So you have reached bliss when you can send a Bitcoin transaction over a mesh network and then over a satellite to then buy a spaceship that will take you to Mars. That is the plan. Let's get there hopefully soon. Guys, if you like the World Crypto Network and all the countless hours of free shows that we put out there, I really appreciate your support. It still blows me away that we have already got a quarter Bitcoin that will go directly to fund the Purism laptop, the Librem 15, the privacy-focused and security-focused hard and software. So if you like to support the World Crypto Network and especially get a bunch of shows about the Purism laptop, with the build quality, the software, and what else you can do with that, would be amazing if you could just donate 25 bucks right here to this QR code. And also, thank you very much to DJ Booth for creating this amazing website, and especially a like here, adding a YouTube video that will, like this one, lead to the interview I did with Todd Weaver, and the explanation here, which is really nice for any fundraiser. Tullycoin does not take a cut. This is my Bitcoin address where I control the keys. So all these funds that you send to this QR code will go directly to me and to no one else. And this is direct peer-to-peer fundraising, as it should be, thanks to Bitcoin. So it's an amazing website. If you want to fundraise pretty much anything, it can be done on here. Of course, please fundraise something for the good fight and not the bad fight. And I do think that the Purism laptop and phone is something quite worthy discussing. So if you would like to see more, thank you very much for the support. Again, we have talked today about GoTenna, and truly it is an amazing piece of hardware and an amazing piece of technology in general, mesh networking. And it's super, super interesting. This is only going to be the first video, so a couple more coming. We will talk especially about TX10, maybe get Richard back on, maybe get Matt back on, or someone else who has developed the TX10 app, the devs from Samurai, Mule Tools, right? That would be fantastic. So again, thank you very much for joining. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and see you on the next show. Bye-bye.